Attic. I want to welcome everyone to the workshop. I want to welcome everyone to the workshop. Could we open this meeting with a moment of silence followed by the serenity prayer? God, grant me serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Like I say, my name is Barry. I am an addict. To the press, our public relation policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always to maintain anonymity at the level of press, radio, and film. This is to protect the membership and the reputation of Narcotics Anonymous. We do not disclose last names nor appear to the media as members of Narcotics Anonymous. No individual inside or outside the fellowship represent Narcotics Anonymous. If you are a member of the press or you approached by a member of the press, please contact the convention information. There will be more willing to assist you in members of NA. Please do not take pictures, videotapes, or other members without their consent. Smoking statement. There will be no smoking in this room, in the hallways, outside the meeting, or at the function. We ask that addicts please smoke in their rooms or outside the hotel only. Clarity statement. We are present at the dilemma when NA identify themselves as addict or alcoholic or talk about living clean and sober. The clarity of the NA message is blurred. Speak in the manner suggested there are two diseases that one drug somehow separates one from the rest, requiring special recognition. Narcotics Anonymous makes no distinction between drugs. Identification as addicts is all inclusive, allowing us to concentrate on our similarities, not our difference. I've asked an addict to read page 1. Who is an addict?
I'm a grateful recovering addict named Stanley. Who is an addict? Most of us do not have to think twice about this question. We know. Our whole life and thinking was centered in drugs in one form or another, the getting and using and finding ways and means to get more. We live to use and use to live. Very simply, an addict is a man or woman whose life is controlled by drugs. We are people in the grip of a continuing and progressive illness whose ends are always the same: jails, institutions, and death.
I've asked an addict to read How It Works.
All right. I'd like to welcome everybody to the X-Nac 3. I'm an addict named Waldo. How it works. If you want what we have to offer and are willing to make the effort to get it, then we are ready to take certain steps. These are the principles that made our recovery possible. Number 1, we admitted that we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives had become unmanageable. Number 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Number 3, we made a decision to turn our wills and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Number 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Number 5, we admitted to God and ourselves and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Number 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Number 7, we humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. Number 8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Number 9, we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Number 10, we continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Number 11, We sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Number 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to addicts and to practice these principles in all our affairs. This sounds like a big order, and we can't do it all at once. We didn't become addicted in one day, so remember, easy does it. There is one thing more than anything else that will defeat us in our recovery. This is an attitude of indifference or intolerance towards spiritual principles. 3 of these that are indispensable are honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. With these, we are well on our way. We feel that our approach to the disease of addiction is completely realistic, for the therapeutic value of one addict helping another is without parallel. We feel that our way is practical, for one addict can best understand and help another addict. We believe that the sooner we face our problems within our society in everyday living, just that much faster do we become acceptable, responsible, and productive members of the society. The only way to keep from returning to active addiction is not to take the first drug. If you are like us, you know that one is too many and 1,000 never enough. We put great emphasis on this, for we know that when we use drugs in any form or substitute one for another, we release our addiction all over again. Thinking of alcohol as different from other drugs has caused great many addicts to relapse. Before we came to NA, many of us viewed alcohol separately, but we cannot afford to be confused about this. Alcohol is a drug. We are people with a disease of addiction who must abstain from all drugs in order to recover. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've asked an addict to read the 12 traditions.
Hello everybody, my name is Charlotte and I'm an addict.
Hey, Charlotte.
We keep what we have only with vigilance, and just as freedom for the individual comes from the 12 steps, so freedom for our group springs from our traditions. As long as the ties that bind us together are stronger than those that will tear us apart, all will be well. 1. Our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends on NA unity. 2. For our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as He may express Himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants. They do not govern. 3. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop using. 4. Each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or NA as a whole. 5. Each group has but one primary purpose, to carry the message to the addict who still suffers. 6. An NA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the NA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, or prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7. Every NA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8. Narcotics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9. NA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10. Narcotics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the NA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. 12. Anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities.
Thank you.
The format for these workshops. The chair and the other panel members are to share first about. No, this is for me. Okay. All right. I want to thank the people for reading. And this is an open meeting, and I get to introduce the guests. And that's the good part about being up here. I finally got my hand where I can get her quiet. You know what I mean? Because any other time we get to argue, and then she always try to get the last word. But today I got the last word. Even when she get through speaking. Hey, but I met this person a long time ago in the program, and she came in and she was real cool. I met her in East Chicago, and we got to be pretty cool. And I don't know. I just felt like, I don't know. I just felt like Rose was a party person, you know what I mean? And she always say something to make me want to laugh and stuff. And then Rose disappeared on me, and it kind of hurt me a little taste. But even when she went back out, she would always see me, And this program has done one thing, man. Once you get a taste of this program, man, it's never the same. Never. I don't care what nobody tell you. And every time she went, she only went out that I know once. And every time she saw me, and she just done her thing, and she see me, and I would blow her high, You know what I mean? I would mess her getting high up, She see me in the grocery store, at the car wash, riding down the street, and I, hey, Rose, and I don't know, I was so happy to hear when she came back that, she was back, and once you listen to Rose, she's a likable person. She into everything, politics of the program, the whole 9 yards, stuff that I don't have the patience and tolerance to take on. But hey, without any other ado, I want to give y'all Rose.
I'm an addict, and my name is Roy Letta. Hi. I'm recovering today from the disease of addiction through and by the grace of a loving and caring power greater than myself, the help and guidance of you, the members of Narcotics Anonymous, and the 12 steps known as the program of Narcotics Anonymous. And for those things and many others, I'm truly grateful. For me, it's an honor and a privilege to be asked to share in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous at any time and for any reason and at any event. One of the things that I've always wanted and yearned for in my life was to be held in reasonably high esteem by my peers and to be accepted by my peers, and I found that when I got here. My topic is we do recover, and when I think of that topic, I immediately start thinking about what I'm recovering from. I know I'm recovering from the disease of addiction. And in that chapter in the text, it tells me that we all know the two things that make up true addiction. Obsession, that fixed idea that takes us back time and again to one drug or another or some substitute to recapture that ease and comfort that we once knew. And compulsion, and that is after starting the process with one pill, one fix, one drink, one hit, one of anything, then I can't stop. And I'm caught in the grips of an incurable, fatal, and progressive disease and illness. And, I know that today I'm recovering from all facets of my disease. From all facets of it. I'm recovering from isolation and alienation, humiliation, denigration. I'm recovering from hopelessness, helplessness, and uselessness. I'm recovering from low self-esteem, self-worth that was directly parallel with my ability to perform sexually. And I'm recovering from self-loathing. See, I know today that my disease took me to places that I didn't really want to go spiritually, but physically I willingly went. I know that today recovery involves much more than simple abstinence for me. And in that same chapter in the text, it talks about the 12 steps. And I know that I first must be totally abstinent from all drugs. See, I'm not the member that can stand before you and say that it's not about drugs for me today, because I came to Narcotics Anonymous because I have a drug problem. That's why I'm here. That never changes. That's always the bottom line. I don't want to use drugs today. But see, today, now that I finally stopped killing myself one hit at a time, I'm learning how to live one day at a time, and that involves stop using people, stop using places, stop using things, stop manipulating, stop lying, stop stealing, stop conning, stop acting out on whatever defect might be on the surface at any given time. That's what recovery is about for me today. And for me, I have to work the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous. You know, and our literature tells me that this is not a 3-step program. Although I would not like to overshadow the foundation steps that we call steps 1, 2, and 3. Without a solid foundation, there is nothing to build on in my life. You know, I had to become spiritually grounded in Narcotics Anonymous. And that's what the foundation steps did for me. You know, when I got here, not only was I a physical wreck, you know, emotionally, I was in pieces. You know, my emotional self was shattered. Spiritually, I was void. You know, I had anesthetized my spirit. You know, and it was just lying dormant inside of me. And at the point of surrender, see, because surrender is the key to my recovery, you know. And at the point of surrender, when I finally gained enough humility and courage to cry out and ask for the God of anybody's understanding to help me, that power took its spirit, its spiritual hands, reached down inside of me, a human shell of a woman, and recaptured the spirit that I had been given at the point of conception. Okay? And began to nurture my spirit, began to minister the healing to my spirit that needs to take place on a daily basis. And that's why I make meetings on a regular basis. Because, see, it's healing in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. See, when I come in the rooms, no matter what space I'm in, you all accept me. You love me. You hug me. You stroke me. You nurture me. You know, you feed my spirit. And that's what I need the most. I need for my spirit to be healed. Because, see, as you can look at me and say, I don't have any physical problems. I eat regularly, too regularly, usually. You know, I'm not suffering from need more. I don't need anything today because all my needs are met, you know. And it's like today, through the process of the steps, I'm beginning to mature emotionally. See, I don't have to act out on my self-centered fears as much as I used to. Not as much as I used to. It doesn't have to be my way all the time. You know, I'm learning to let go. I'm learning to live and let other people live in their appointed space. And man, let me tell you something. It's hard for me to do. It's real hard for me to do. But you know, I challenged myself recently because my home area put together a bid committee to submit a bid to host ISNAC 4. And I didn't get on the ad hoc. And it took a lot for me to stay out of it, to not get on it, to not put my 2 cents in, to not try to manipulate the outcome, you know, to not even offer one suggestion. But guess what, family? I was able to do that, you know. And it's like, I know that whatever God's will is going to be done anyway. See, that I'm sure of because I'm here today. See, I'm a living testament that faith can conquer anything. There's nothing that faith cannot overcome, you know. And it's like in the chapter it talks about that wordless language, you know, that wordless language of recognition, belief, and faith that we call empathy, created an atmosphere where we could, help me, sister, where we could feel time, touch reality, and recognize spiritual values long lost to many of us. And see, that's where I want to stay right there. Recognizing those spiritual values that I lost a long time ago. See, because when I was a little girl being reared, I knew right from wrong. I had some spiritual values. They were lost along the way. They got overshadowed, overclouded, barricaded inside of me, deep inside of me, by all the things that I did. All the spiritual wounds that were inflicted upon me, many of which I invited in. Many of which I invited in. See, that's why I know today that I don't allow people to dictate who I am. You can't do that for me. I don't allow people to think for me. See, and one of the greatest joys I find today is making a decision, because it means that I did it, and guess what else? I take responsibility for it. So if it's a bad decision, I can go back and remake it. I can go back and remake it. I don't have to stay stuck, you know? And it's like recapturing my spiritual values is the process of recovery that I'm in right now. You know, when I was in early recovery, when I was new in the rooms, it was real important for me to recapture the physical self that I lost. I wanted my complexion to come back clear. I wanted to grow some hair. I wanted to have some fingernails. I wanted to wear some nice clothes. I wanted a piece of jewelry. You know, those things were of the utmost importance to me when I was a newcomer. So I can ID with the newcomer. I can ID with that, you know. But I kept coming back, and I kept using a sponsor, and my sponsor always said, work the steps or die. And I worked the steps, you know, and I began to recover from the inside out. From the inside out. And man, that's not easy for me. It's not easy for me to go down inside of me, identify what in there is contaminating me emotionally and spiritually, and then go through the process of steps 6, 7, 8, and 9 and cast that out. You know, and it's like, it's not like I cast it out. I have to allow God to do God's job in the 7th step. The biggest job I have is to be honest with myself, you know, to continue to break through denial. And in order for me to be in denial, it has to be some truth. It has to be some truth there in order for me to be in denial. You know, and I come to realize that. I'm real grateful today for the recovery process, because see, never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that I'd be standing before you today. You know, and it's a few faces in the crowd that I know, that I used with, praise God. You know, it's like all my friends are here, you know, and they didn't hardly allow me a chance for them last 15 minutes before the workshop started to be nervous. They were just jugging at me, and my brothers all up here on the front row, you know, and all that. And it was great, you know, because then I could get out of me, and I could stop thinking about, okay, I'm going to start off with this, and then I'm going to go over there, and all of that stuff, you know. And I could begin to allow the God of my understanding to intercede and give me utterance, you know. And I know today that recovery is an active change in attitudes, ideas, and behaviors. And usually that's exactly how it happens for me in the 7th step. See, it's like, first my attitude about a defect to change, and where it used to be okay to do that act, it becomes repulsive to me. It gives me some mental anguish, and I don't like doing that because I don't feel good when I do it anymore. It stops working. You know, see, I hold on to a lot of my defects because they still produce the results that I'm looking for. See, I know that when I came in here, I was full of fear, and my greatest fear was that of people. Okay? And so in order to keep people away from me, because see, they would do one of two things, so my mind said. They would either reject me initially, or they would reel me in, and right when they got me in, they would abandon me. And both of those hurt. So what did I do? Because I was afraid, I acted in ways that would keep people away. You know? I would just do and say anything. And some people just, you know, are masochistic because they kept loving me anyway. You know, they didn't stop loving me, no matter how bad I treated them. They just kept right on loving me. And see, I know today they had the capacity to do that because they had been healed from the inside out. I know that, you know, a lot of times the people that it's the hardest to love need the most love. They need the most nurturing. They need the most hugs. Those people who don't like to hug, they get the biggest hugs from me. Because I know they need the most hugs. Because when I didn't want you hugging me was when I needed you to hug me the most. And my responsibility today as a responsible, productive member of the Narcotics Anonymous Society is to give to you what they gave to me when I got here. Now, I know a lot of times I carry a lot of titles, and all of them are okay, and I don't apologize for being a guru if that's what you think I am. Because, see, I went to the dictionary on you. I don't have a problem with the definition of a guru, because I study the literature. You know, and I pride myself in knowing something about NA. You know, I don't stand up and say that I don't know how the program works. Yes, I do. We have a whole chapter that tells me how it works. I read the chapter. I do what it says. And it's like, I take directions, you know. And in sponsorship, I give directions. I don't offer a lot of suggestions to my sponsees. I share my experience, strength, and hope with them, and then I tell them what to do if they want what I got. They have a choice. If they want what I got, then you'll do what I did. It's real simple. That's the way my sponsor gave it to me. She said, if you want what I got, do this. So, you know, I would do it sometimes, and sometimes I wouldn't. The times when I would do it, I would get what she had. The times when I didn't, I got something else. And then I end up going back and doing what she had told me to do in the first place. It was real simple, you know. I stopped bulking. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it the first time, this time, because I need to do that, you know, because I want that. And it's like, a lot of times I take that same scenario and I put it in real simple terms, you know, because a lot of times spiritual things are kind of far removed from me because I'm not on a spiritual plane, you know. So it's like, if I want to buy a brand new car, I go to people who got a brand new car. And I say, how did you get that car? And they tell me. I came up with X amount. The first day I always say I went to work. I got a job, you know. And I saved up X amount of dollars, and I put down a down payment, and then I found some financing. I found a car note that was, you know, I could handle that and wouldn't have to sleep in the car, you know. And then I made a deal with a car dealer. So now I know how to get a new car. I just do what they did. Now, ain't no use in me thinking that I'm going to come up with a brand new car if I leave out any one of those ingredients. I might get a car, but it will not be a brand new car, you know? And for me today, I try to keep my recovery simple. I am of service to the Fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous, and I'm grateful for that. Because, see, that's my greatest means of practicing the 12th step, is to carry the message to the addict who still suffers. And it's like, until I got the message, I couldn't carry it. I need to say that. Until I got the message, I couldn't carry it. See, because in the 11th step, it tells me that it's doubtful that until I had worked the preceding 10 and including 11, I wouldn't be able to transmit a message sufficient enough to attract others to recovery. It didn't say I couldn't transmit a message. It said my message would be insufficient to attract others to recovery. You know, and that's what's most important for me. Because, see, now I want every addict all over the world to at least have an opportunity to recover. Once given an opportunity to recover, then they have to make a decision, much like I did, whether to stay or go back. And in the beginning, I went back the first time. By the time I made it back, and you know, it was a crack up under the door about 1/4 inch high, and I slithered up under there, and I've been here ever since. And just for today, I ain't going nowhere. I ain't going nowhere. Because, see, I found myself in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. In the literature of Narcotics Anonymous is where Roy Letter can be found. And whenever I'm looking for my God, I find a need, either in my life or in yours. Because my God can always be found at the point of need. I don't ever have to search real far for where my God is. Whatever it is that's needed, that's where God is. just kind of hanging out, meeting needs as they come along, And I'm real grateful for that. I'm real grateful for that because, see, recovery for me today means that I don't hate myself anymore, that I don't prostitute myself anymore, that I don't steal anymore, that I work diligently at not lying. Diligently at not lying, And then I'm learning also to temper my honesty with humility and love. See, because I just really tell the ugly truth on me and you. And all the time you ain't trying to hear that. And really don't want nobody else to hear it either. When we get to that stage, it's called gossip. Destructive force, but very prevalent in these rooms, And it's like, the reason why it's so destructive is because most of it is rooted in honesty. Most of it starts off with the truth. And then as it goes from ear to ear to ear and out of mouth and mouth and mouth, some more get added on, And that's what makes it so destructive, And I'm learning today to be able to go right to the source, to the individual, and share and care with them the NA way, one-on-one, and not have to talk to anybody else about whatever your problem or my problem might be. It's about giving a hand up, a leg up, a pull up, and doing that in a spiritual way. Incorporating these spiritual principles in all my affairs. That's so difficult. It's so difficult for me to recover at home. See, I don't go home and use narcotics, but I go home and use the telephone. And if this guy that I'm in a relationship with comes over my house, it's my way or the highway. I am not powerless over you because you are in my house. Go to your house and I'll be powerless. But in my house, I got some power, So, I'm still recovering. Find myself at the first step on many an occasion. On many an occasion, I have to be at the first step, powerless. And it's like obsession and compulsion. That fixed idea that takes me back time and time again to the drug that I chose to use or some substitute. And why does it take me back there? Because I'm trying to recapture the ease and comfort that I once knew. Well, see, now today, I don't use narcotics, but I am still obsessive. See, and it's like, for me today, obsession comes about with this guy, And it's 2 o'clock in the morning, 45 degrees below zero outside, and I want to know why he won't answer the telephone. Because he got off from work 3 hours ago. But he not answering the telephone. So, at 2:15, when I can no longer take it anymore, and I must recapture the ease and comfort I once knew from knowing exactly where he is, I get up, keep my pajamas on, put on this big fur coat, go get in my car, and drive to his house. Knock on the door. He answers. I go in. Why didn't you answer the telephone? I turned the ringer off because I wanted to get some sleep. And as long as I was just laying in my bed thinking about getting up, going to his house, I was just caught in the grips of obsession. Once I got up and put that coat on, I had started the process of compulsing. Okay? And then when I get to his house, he opens the door, he's home alone, and tells me so nicely that I turned the ringer off because I wanted to get some sleep. I feel like shit. I feel stupid. I'm like, why did I do that? And then I don't even spend the night there. I go back home. Okay? I go back home. Obsession and compulsion. that fixed idea that something must be going on at his address because he won't answer the phone. Or he's not there, and there is no reason in the world why he should not be home at 2 a.m. Let me go see. Obsession and compulsion, And when I'm like that, my life is unmanageable. Because, see, I'm a useful, productive member of the society at large today, and I have a job that requires me to be there at a certain hour of the a.m., but I'm up at 2 a.m. going, 5 or 6 miles across town to see why he don't answer the phone when I should have been asleep in the first place. So now the next day at work, I'm dragging around. I'm not as quick-witted as I normally am. My thinking is not as swift as it normally is. And my life is unmanageable. Caught in the grips. See, and I know today that my disease wants to kill me any way it can. And it'll use any person, any place, and anything to do that. And once again, I usually invite this unmanageability into my life. I usually invite that in. Come on in. Let me cook you dinner. Draw you a nice warm bath. Lotion you down. And then bed you down. And make you real comfortable. Everything will be okay because I will take care of it. Just for today. I'm grateful for the level of awareness that I have. I'm grateful for the level of surrender that I have. See, because ain't nothing worse in the world for me to do than make myself feel stupid. So I didn't do that no more. But I did that. See, I need to let you know that I did do that. I ain't do that no more. I was like, I am not doing that one anymore. So then I find other ways and means to try to manipulate the situation. So I call him at work and say, come over my house before you go to your house. And then when he gets to my house, I try to convince him to stay there. Then I don't have to wonder where he is. I know. I can reach out and touch him. Okay? Unmanageability. I know today that low self-esteem has been replaced with some self-confidence, some self-assurance. And I have to be careful not to become cocky. I have to be careful not to become cocky. And I have to be careful to keep humility at work in my life because I have this large ego going in, and then I do a few things right. I get a few positive strokes and a few pats on the back, and then it just becomes full-blown ego. And Roy Letter is doing something, and then I get a tumble, and then I get humble, And I know that the God of my understanding works very well through people. I don't isolate myself or alienate myself from the fellowship today. I allow the fellowship to walk with me through whatever it is I got to walk through. And inevitably, it's always one of you somewhere who's treaded that path before me. You have already blazed the trail through that one. When this tape goes out, somebody somewhere is going to be able to ID with getting up at X amount of hours in the morning, going halfway across town just to see if they were home. I'm not unique. I don't do anything. I am not the author or originator of anything. Everything that I've done, someone else did it. They did it better. They did it longer, or they didn't do it as long. You know what I'm saying? But they did it. And that's all I need is some identification. It lets me know that I'm in the right place, that I'm doing the right things, and that I am on the recovery road. See, when I was in active addiction, I was on the road to recovery. Once I got to Narcotics Anonymous and rooted myself here, I was on the recovery road. You know what I mean? Because it's like all roads lead home. And I find home inside of me. that place where I always wanted to be able to go to and find peace at a moment's notice. To be able to match calamity with serenity. And on a few occasions, I've been able to do that. See, because my mother died, and it hurt real bad, and I called addicts, and they rushed right over, and they stayed. You know, they stayed. And I was so grateful for that. I was real grateful for that. And it wasn't because I had this wonderful relationship with my mother. It was because a whole lot of feelings that I had denied for so many years rushed to the surface when I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt I'd never have her in my life anymore. But just for today, I do have her because she dwells in my spirit, you know. And it's like going through the process of the 12 steps is what awakened my spirit, gives me spiritual awareness, gives me the ability to recapture spiritual values that were lost to me, you know. And every time I compromised my morals or my values, I died a spiritual death. And it's hard to continue to come in these rooms, continue to compromise my values and my morals and die spiritually and stay clean. It's hard to do that. Something has to go. And for me, what had to go was the compromising. Today I stand on my values. They're all I have. They are what constitute me. It's what I believe in. And it is what works for me. You know? So if you're new in these rooms, keep coming back. If you still practicing a behavior that has become uncomfortable, keep coming back. Work the steps. Pray in whatever form you can find to do that in. Listen to whatever you think is out there, and you too will recover. I'm recovering. I'm an addict. I killed myself a day at a time, and I no longer have a need to do that. I no longer kill myself spiritually, mentally, or physically. So, for those of you who were in these rooms when I got here, you dinosaurs. All these people on the front row just groaning and moaning, and they want their recognition. I love them. I love them. Keep coming back because you all are the evidence of the things that I hope for. Thanks for allowing me to share.
Can we give Rose another round of applause? Well, I told you, Rose know this book now, okay? You know, I don't even play with her with that. I joke and tease with her about a lot of other things, but I'm trying to get over on her with the book, you know. We got another speaker. I know this person pretty well, too. I was here when he came around. And this guy's always been, you know, pretty okay. You know, I've seen him come in, you know, and he carries himself like a gentleman, you know. He's always got something to sell, you know. Even into the program, you know. He stayed here, been here, you know what I mean. I ain't seen no intermission breaks with this guy neither, you know. And he carries a good message, you know. I give y'all Cecil.
Good evening, family. My name is Cecil, and I'm a grateful recovering addict. On the topic of we do recover, you know, I was sitting back there and I was like thinking, you know, what should I say, you know? And it's always when we try to plan what to say, you know, God comes in there and he tells you what to say, you know? So I want to remove myself out of the way and let God speak through me, because what I have to say is nothing, you know, but God has all the answers and all the questions, you know. It gives me great honor to speak before you, and I as Roy Letta said, my peers, because there's a lot of faces around here that I do recognize. And it's real hard to get up before someone that has heard you before and seen your life before them, and get up here and talk about yourself, the program, and how your life revolves around the program. And since I've been around the program, I realized that social acceptability does not equal recovery in no form. And no matter how you try, the lifestyle will get you. That old lie is dead. Once an addict, always an addict. It's not true. Because there's a lot of beautiful people around here that have proven that not to be true. I know myself that I never dreamed that I would be clean because I couldn't string 3 or 4 days together. They told me if I could stop for a few days that I could kick the habit. But I couldn't. A lot of times that I stopped, but I just continued. So I couldn't stay stopped. But I'm grateful to have come into this room and found you people that were trying to do the same thing I was trying to do, one day at a time. See, that's what's so beautiful about this program. All you have to do is come here and try. There are other people here that will help you. This is a self-help group. Program. This is a great program. I don't know anything better. Coming through these rooms, I've been able to meet a lot of people, and meeting a lot of people from everywhere. We have the same common denominator, and that is drugs, and the fact that we use. I used when I felt good. I used when I felt bad. I just used to feel indifferent. I just wanted to use. And drugs, as we say, is a small symptom of our disease, just a small amount. And as the first speaker spoke, drugs affect us in all areas of our lives. Coming around, when I did come around in 1988, it was like, I remember Royletta early on when she was here, and it was like when she left, it was like, dang, she went out there. And she was one of the first that I know that had came around and was instrumental in my life and went out there. And, when someone comes around and go back out there, they take a little of you with them, and it really hurts to see people go back out there. But it says in our literature, sometimes people have to go back and relapse in order to get a firm foundation in this program. But relapse is not a part of recovery. It's not a part that we have to do, but it does happen. And sometimes it might make that foundation a little greater, that we can work this program. But this program works all the time. We don't work all the time. That's the problem. I'm grateful that I can get before you. I'm nervous. Yes, I'm nervous. I got a little chill, but I'm talking about something that we all know a little bit about, because I don't claim to know a lot about recovery, but I know enough about recovery that it works. And all the things that I do against my will, I find myself going back and doing the right thing. And why do something and have to repeat it? That's wasted energy. And I'm learning as I've been around this program to try to do it the right way the first time. And all our fears that we have, all the fears that I have about life, and going through storms and feeling less than, inadequate, totally. This program seems to put its arms around you and can soothe you no matter where you are, whether you're homeless, as they say, from Yale to jail, from park benches to Park Avenue, no matter where you've been or where you're going. The program can soothe you and make you whole again. And I used because I wanted to fit in. And I used because there was something missing inside, that void. We talk about that void. There's so many voids that people have, and myself. The void, as I say, of not feeling good enough, not feeling smart enough or intelligent enough, however you want to say it, But they say this program is for those who have to dummy up to get the program, Einstein can't, but Bozo can. There's a lot of things about this program that I heard when I first came around. They said, "Keep it simple, stupid." I didn't like that saying. Because I don't think that you can get this program being stupid. You got to work to get this program. It's not easy, but there's sometimes that the way gets nicer, it gets comfortable. You get that peace. And I have been to church. I've been a lot of places looking for that peace and that comfort, and I didn't find it. See, and I was running away from myself trying to find that peace, trying to find that relaxation. I remember when I used to get high and I used to say, well, I'm going to do one and I'm going to cool out. That just started the ball rolling, and it wasn't the 50 cent worth or the dollar worth or whatever. It was just that perpetuation of doing it over and over again. As well as I was saying, that compulsion, that obsessed with these things, And using these drugs, it had me doing what I didn't want to do. It had me going to places that I didn't fit in, And I'm grateful that I don't have to do that anymore. I choose not to do that anymore. They talk about playing the tape out. If I do this, what's going to happen next? I don't like the outcome. So I choose not to do the things that will get you that outcome. And I can go back and use it if I choose to. But I choose not to do that. Because, see, there's a better way. I like me a little bit better today. I'm starting to love myself. No matter what my character defects, my liabilities, with my assets, we have all those, and through the process of getting better, see, this is an inside program. It's not about all this mass that we have out here, It's all about that inside. Today, do I do something to someone else that I wouldn't want done to myself? These are the morals and values that I have gotten since I've been in this program. I don't want to do something to someone else that I wouldn't want done to me. Those are the things that I have picked up as I've been in this program. And speaking, they say stick with the winners. The winners are the people I think that are trying to do things in this program, trying to go places, and not necessarily physically. This program has carried me from so many places. I mean, my self-esteem is starting to build. My ego is getting bigger sometimes, which I have to learn how to deflate that. But I still have one, okay? And I think sometimes that make you feel that you're alive. And sometimes it's okay to have an ego, and it's not how you think, what you think about me, it's what I think about myself. See, that's the main thing. See, today I don't worry about what people think about me. I care, but I don't worry about it. It's important what people think about me, but it don't make me, And I say that because I really mean that, See, I must live my life today through this program, through God's help, and be the best that I can be. Not the best that someone else think I should be, but the best I can be. In a lot of these areas of our lives that we continue to substitute in the relationships, in money, in clothes. There's a lot of things that we substitute that feeling of feeling better, or feeling adequate, or better. I don't know, I know in a relationship area, which is a very painful area. I recently was divorced a couple years ago. And I said recently because the scars are still there. And they gradually heal themselves as I go through this program, and as I go through the 12 steps, and as I talk to you people, it gets better. The door is still open, and I still remember the pain. Pain of someone rejecting you. That hurts. That hurts real bad, after 15 years especially. But, I look at it in a positive light, because that makes me grow. See, but if I look at it negatively, I don't get anything out of it. Matter of fact, it hurts me to get involved with it negative. Anything that happens in my life today, it happens for a reason. And through the process of healing myself, the process of going through this program, allowing you people to hug me. And I believe when you give a good hug, you give a little of that soul to that individual. You give a little strength, because we wasn't hugged when we was out there on those corners. We wasn't told that we were loved, that someone loved us. And I remember when I first came around, somebody told me, I'll love you until you learn to love yourself. And I'm like, this person don't even know me. How can you love me? You don't even know me. You know, and I'm learning that this program has all those great things for you, you know. You know, I know that I'm powerless over how people feel, how people act, even sometimes how I act myself. But through this program, I've learned that I don't have to react on all of my feelings. And when I first came around, the sponsor that I had at that time used to tell me my feelings were not all facts because they had nothing to base them on. You know, when I was out there using, how can I base what I felt then to what I was starting to feel in recovery? Because there was no foundation there. So I couldn't base my feelings on those type of facts because they were too up and down. They were not consistent. And this was what I like about this program. Today I have a little consistency, a little balance. And that's one thing the program has given me is a balance in my life. I think the spirituality side of the program, well, the whole program is spiritual. But the spiritual part allows me to get that balance, allows me to keep that balance, to help to keep that integrity of my morals and my values together. See, and that's one thing about this program. Those morals and values allow us to be humans rather than being that animal that we talk about. You know, that's the difference of us. See, a dog was mess where he got to sleep and still turn around and eat it. I don't do that today. You know, it's just this program is miraculous. You know, if I had to tell somebody about this program, I would say that you got to meet yourself. See, and that's one thing about this program, unmasking yourself, getting inside and looking at. There's going to be a lot of things that we're not going to like because there's still a lot of things today that I don't like about myself. But I'm learning to be, the more I'm powerless, the more power it seems like I get. Because the program allows me to accept a little of that power back. To have the choices today, to make these changes, as we say. This program is about going through those changes. We have to go through them. But it's one thing about those changes, it seems to want to stay, I seem to want to stay the same because I understand that and I know what it's all about. Fear the unknown. So you stay in that same pain. You know, and it was like, my minister asked me, did I want to go back to my wife? And I was like, no, I don't think I want to do that. But I say that to myself. And I told him, well, anything's possible. You know, like that. But I didn't mean that. I mean, I really, truly didn't mean it inside. Because there's a lot of pain there, you know. See, and I know that when we come to this program and it start educating us and start changing us, making us grow, and then you get with someone that's not growing and not trying to be better, it's not going to be a good relationship. See, both people have to grow to make that relationship a whole relationship, a quality relationship. And see, that's one thing that I'm learning in this program, you know, that getting with someone that doesn't have a program, some type of program, and it's not going to be a wholesome relationship. And laying down with somebody for the feeling, we do that. I do that. I hadn't got past that yet, okay? But that's okay, you know? That's something I have to work on. Because see, I might be the one to wake up with feelings and strung out, you know? But see, that's okay too. Because that's a part of the growth. That's a part of growing. You know, and I think we all can identify with that. Because it's a process. It's a big process. You know, and it was really strange a few 20. You know, this lady that I was involved with, and I had her over, she came over, and it's like, I didn't really want to be with her, but the bones was hurting, you know? That obsession. And you know, it's like this, you know, when things are over, it was like, when you gonna leave, you know, I don't want you around here no way, all right? And see, I didn't feel good about that. I didn't even feel good with myself after that happened, you know? It was like, why did I do that? But it was all about those feelings that you had, you know? Those I don't know, it's one thing about this program that you just can't stay stuck on stupid, you know? So you can't stay in that. you have to change, you know. And see, I hate doing things that I regret later. See, and so I stopped calling her. But you know, I mean, she didn't stop calling me. But you know, that's another chapter. But you know, I know this program that we do recover because it's telling me that you know I have a feeling of well that's not all right, you know. And see, that's what makes this program great is because it do gives us those stop signs, you know. It gives us those caution signs. You know, I know that in those people, places, and things. You know, I don't go around certain people and places and things anymore. And if it is, it's very brief and it's gone. Because I just said if the drug don't kill you, the lifestyle will. And see, some of those lifestyles I choose not to live anymore. Those lifestyles, I don't plan on going back. One day at a time. You see, if I do the necessary thing, this is addict make meetings on a regular basis. Do not, they stay. They don't recover. They recover. See, today, I hate saying I'm an addict because I'm not an addict today. I'm a recovering addict. See, today I do the necessary things to stay clean. So I'm a recovering addict today. I'm not an addict anymore. See, an addict is doing those same things. You know, I have addict behavior sometimes. Don't get me wrong. But today, I don't do those same things to stay stuck on that stupid as we talk about. You know, as I said earlier, it's about doing something better every day to be better. You know, if it's washing your behind, if that's what's necessary, if that's the next best thing to do. You know, and I learned that early in recovery, that you do the next best thing for you. You know, when you feel like you're slipping, you know, get into the book, get into your literature. You know, today I have a God in my life, and He's loving and kind. It's not important that I tell you whose mine is. It's the fact that I tell you I have one. But mine is God, and I don't have a problem with telling you that. You know, He's the supreme being in my life. And He's loving, He's definitely loving and kind. You know, because, as I said, love without compassion is complete hostility. See, today, my love is not hostile with people that I really love. You know, I don't take them hostage because I love them. I'm able to love and let them go. And if they really truly love me, they'll come back. And I've learned that you give the best that you can give in a situation, and you let go. And the more you let go, the more you have. You know, like going to the beach and grabbing a handful of sand. The tighter you squeeze, the less sand you have. So when you open it with a love, you retain more. See, in this program, the more you give, the more you have. You have to give it away to keep it. See, that's what this program is all about. It's being humble, and having that compassion for other people. See, I couldn't stand up here and share who I am on the inside if I didn't have love and compassion for other recovering addicts. Because I know that when I was using, you know, I was a bad sight. You know, that paranoia brought me up in here. I mean, I was running from everything and myself. You know, today I don't have to run because today I'm trying to be that productive member of society, and whatever that entails, you know, trying to help somebody today. You know, that's what the program has given me so freely. You know, today I've traveled places and been to conventions and workshops in different places, and it allows me to become friends with people, to get to know other people, and it doesn't mean just because it don't matter about what sex they are or what race they are. That's totally irrelevant to me. But the fact is that they have a common denominator that I have, that we're all looking to recover one day at a time. I know that this program has a lot of gifts. There's only one promise that it has: freedom from active addiction. But it has lots of gifts. But you got to do the work in order to get the gifts. You got to do the work. Because if you don't do the work, you don't get to pay. See, and the pay is those gifts: freedom, It's one of the number one gifts for me. See, today I don't have to do what I used to do to get what I needed, you know? I don't have to lie, manipulate, con, slick, you know, be smooth, all that kind of stuff. Today I can just be me, you know? And you know, things will work out for the best, you know? You know, I'm not comfortable taking something from somebody when it's not mine. You know, be it that I might take some paper towels from work or something like that. It's still not mine, but I still hadn't got over doing that. I take it home, wipe my truck off, or take it home, wipe my hands, or whatever. But I don't do the stuff I used to do. I don't be taking the other stuff, you know. I mean, you know, one lie is, no big how big it is a lie, you know. But those are the things I work on, being better. That's why this is such a lifetime process. This ain't something that you get in a few months or a few weeks. You never get a seniority up in here. We all been around different periods of time. And anybody that say time don't mean nothing, give yours away and get some. You know, if it don't mean anything to you. Because I would hate to go back out there and start back over. Because I might not make it back. See, there's no guarantee that you make it back in here. There's definitely not a guarantee. So while you're here, stay here. You know, and I plead with you because it's a whole lot better up in here than it is out there. And I see it every day when on people's faces when they come up in here. You could just tell in their body. You know, and learning about the nature of addiction. I know what it does to the mind, the body, the soul. And doing it myself. You know, I don't wish that on nobody. But it's something that you can't control once you start doing it. There's no controlling it. I noticed when I was using, you know, I would get high at certain places and I would tell the people, you know, I would leave and man, they said, man, I don't want him back here no more. So the next day I would come clean. I come back where I hadn't used that day. And they said, man, you clown last night. You wouldn't talk to nobody. You was looking out the windows and you were doing this and you were doing that. I said, oh man, I didn't do that. I said, I'm gonna do it different today. I'm not gonna act like that today. I'm not gonna act like that today. But as soon as I said I was gonna do it different. As soon as I got it in me, I started doing the same thing over and over again. So I know there's no doubt in my mind that I'll be right back doing the same things I used to do, progressively worse. You know, this is a progressive disease. You know, and it tells itself in a lot of areas. And I have to weigh my words today when I talk to people, especially the ones that I love and people that I'm close to. You know, because I want them to feel what I really mean and not what I blurt out because I react. You know, sometimes people make you react. Well, they don't make you react, but their actions dictate something that you maybe shouldn't do or say. But when you talk to people and tell them how you truly feel, you think about that. You should think about it, you know. Because I wouldn't want, like as I said earlier, I wouldn't want people to treat me any kind of way. You know, and I don't be around those people long anyway if they don't treat me right. Because today I have a choice. See, that's one thing about this program. It gives you a lot of choices. If you plan on keeping this program in your life, you have to do the necessary footwork. You know, I'm not good at it, and I don't like sometimes writing stuff. But sometimes I do have to sit down and go through different things and talking about myself, putting that down on paper and looking at it, or going to someone else and talking to them about it, and they telling me about, you wasn't that bad. And they sharing some of themselves with me. Then I'm learning that we all have done some of those crazy things, but it's okay, you know. I know that it was insane to do some of the things I did. And even today, some of the things I do is very insane today. But until I get enough pain, I'll keep doing those insane things. See, but you'll change when the pain get too great. Simple as that. And it's real strange how if you stump your toe today, if you broke your leg 5 years ago, that pain today is almost worse than that was a long time ago, even though that was more severe. Or because you're in that pain today, it seems like the greatest pain that you ever have endured in your life. No matter what that pain is, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally. I mean, the emotional pain in this program is so great because it's about our feelings today. See, we don't have today. Not medicating our feelings is a biggie in this program because today I can feel. Today I can. It's something to have I have a 14-year-old, and seem like at this point she wants to rebel. You know, and I just can't make her do nothing. You know, I can tell her, baby, if you don't get good grades, you're not gonna be able to get that job or do something and go some of the places that you want to go. You know, baby, if you don't try to be a productive person in your classes, that you're not gonna have the things that you want to have in life. And I can tell her this, and she tell me she's doing her best, and I know it's not her best because teachers know when you're not doing your best. They know where you are. So you know, it's real hard trying to find the right answers to tell her what to do and not to do. But one thing I know about it is the only thing I can do is love her and be there for her, you know, and try to. I was going to bring her on this trip with me, but I said, you know, you don't deserve coming here, laying up in the pool, eating out every day. You don't deserve that. And I'm not proud of you. And I said that because that's what I felt. I wasn't proud of you. You know, and I hung up on her. But I'll go back and say I'm sorry, but I meant to do it. You know what I'm saying? There's certain things that go through our lives that make us better. You know, and that's a real sore spot with me because I love her dearly. You know, she's all I got, I say. She's all, you know. I don't know, this program is miraculous in a lot of ways. You know, my defects and being able to go to a person and say I'm sorry. You know, making those amends that we talk about it. You know, those amends must be met. They must be done. You know, and I've made a few since I've been in this program. There's some that I haven't made as of yet, but I plan to make. And it's real funny. I was listening to a tape on the way down here, how this young lady was talking about sometimes God puts you in the position to make that amends when you're not ready to make it. You think you're not ready to make it, but it's forced upon you because you're in the presence of that individual that you need to make that amends to. And a lot of times that person has forgiven you, but you haven't gotten there and talked to that individual and said what happened and whatever. But I have to forgive myself, number one, and go from there. And I know that it works if I do that. You know, we talk about different steps and stuff. And I know the 11th step, I'm always there because I always pray for God's will for me and the power to carry it out. And I know that He will give me that power. I don't know what His will is, but I do know that it will come. And I'm very grateful to have been here and to speak before my peers. I thank you very much.
Can we get Cecil another hand? Okay, we're going to close this meeting with the Serenity Prayer. I want to thank both speakers. Hey, you did good.